let's do it. In this video, I am going to go over why Albion Online is not pay to win. Now, obviously, there are elements of pay to win, but for some reason, everyone in the game has the exact same thought process or feeling that the game is not pay to win. It's almost like a hive mind of all players. They feel like the game is not pay to win, and I'm going to explain exactly why. Even though you can buy things in the game to give you an advantage, it does not seem pay to win. I'm going to break it all down. So before we do that, though, I'm going to go over the various forms of things that you can buy in the game to give you some sort of advantage. So right off the bat, you can exchange silver for gold or gold for silver. Gold is the premium currency. Silver is the in-game currency that you're getting from monsters, right? So literally, you can exchange real-life money for in-game currency, right? Right off the bat, that's a ridiculous exchange to even think about, right? You can straight up convert real money to in-game money. The other thing you can do is you can pay with this money. You can use this money to progress your trees. So speccing things up, farming things up. You could technically swipe to get that done. But for some reason, none of this feels pay to win. There's one more piece that I'm not getting at. There is one piece that I feel like is probably the only part that is negative, and that's awakened weapons. But I'll explain that caveat towards the end. So I think those two things are the main pieces. You can obviously buy skins and stuff like that. None of that really helps you in any way in the game. But the cosmetics are obviously purchasable. That's another form of monetization the game has. But I'm going to break down why exchanging money for gear doesn't really, or levels, doesn't really help you in the game. Well, it helps you in the game, but why people don't feel like it's pay to win. Because at face value, anyone looking from outside would look at that and go, obviously that's hideous pay to win. But it's not, right? So here's why. Basically, when you swipe to get stuff, the goal in the game is generally just getting money. If you're swiping your card to get the thing without playing, that means that you're, one, either lazy, which is fine. The game has not that high of a cap, and most of the players that are playing for a short amount of time have already hit some of those thresholds, so you're fairly even after maybe a month of play, right? Your trees are maxed, so if someone's swiping to skip that, it's really not doing anything. You don't see someone in the game with max spec and you go, oh, that guy swiped. Like, that's not really a thing. I have pulled a tree up to max in like 16 hours, right? Blightstaff, I did this in under a day. Just gameplay. Maxed out. That means that I am as strong as other people are that have been playing for years with the Blightstaff, right? You can get to that progress level pretty quick. When you're brand new, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer than that, but if you know what you're doing, it can be done in under a day of game time. That's essentially making you as strong as anyone else with this weapon, right? So the paying to skip, it's more like unlocking a champion in League, is what I would compare it to, right? When you unlock something, you're like, oh, I don't feel like grinding the iron route. You swipe for the iron route. Nobody cares, right? Because you're just playing a different character or playing a different weapon. That's kind of what that feels like to the players in the game. I don't think anyone's ever really complaining that someone is swiping to unlock various different pieces of gear or weapons. And also, it's very expensive. But I think the key point there is that it's limited. There's a ceiling, and it's a pretty close ceiling. You know, you don't just like pass veteran players or people that have been playing for months, and it's like, oh, well, that guy dropped $1,000. I would compare this to, actually, I'm gonna do a visual. We'll bring on our favorite. Everybody's favorite. So we're gonna have two players here, right? And we're gonna have two examples. MS Paint time. Okay. We got your player, your free-to-play player. Okay. Well, I didn't mention there is a monthly subscription that does give you advantages. I would say that the monthly subscription is it's premium, right? I would say that does give you advantages because you're getting just more stuff all the time. So let's not factor in premium. I didn't even mention it at the start, but your monthly sub, optional, right? The game is free to play. If you have the monthly sub, you have some sort of advantage when you're gaining loot and all that. So let's just say we have our average player who buys a sub or pays in-game money for the sub because that's possible because of the way their monetization works. This guy is your classic player who all he does is he has a sub, whether bought in-game or IRL, and he plays the game naturally. And then over here, you have the whale, the swiper. He's got massive item power, just huge weapons, right? Now, at the end of the day, this is more looking like a comparison between a new player and a veteran player. If you have someone that's been playing for a while, they're going to be able to get this. They'll have the option to risk the good stuff, right? But someone who's swiping is doing it because they're not making enough money to rebuy this every time they go out. So they're going out and they have to swipe because they're not making enough in-game money to like buy it again in-game. So this player nets negative all the time. The swiper nets negative. Like they have to by like fact, right? What else would that money be going to? They're like the whole point of the game is to make money or fame, but it's always making money at the same time. If they're having to swipe for the gear they're getting, they're dropping it for other people. Now, if your player who's not swiping is buying the same gear with in-game currency, it's because they're affording it. They're using it and they're not dying with it, right? So I think this is why most players don't feel like the game is pay to win, because at the end of the day, if you are feeling like you need to buy the gear, you're likely losing it at a more rapid pace than you can afford it. And your average player who doesn't do that is, I would say, winning more. Does that make sense? Like they literally winning in the game is winning your engagements, winning your fights, making money, being profitable. Winning the game isn't done by buying the gear, right? And I think this is why most people don't feel like it's pay to win, and why most people will just say, please swipe your card. That would be great, right? Like everyone's down for it. You're like, oh, you need to swipe? That's cool if you're lazy or you just want to wear the shiny stuff, but you know that they're going to drop it. Like they clearly can't afford to wear it because otherwise they would have the money in game to wear it, right? So it's pretty much as basic as that. Now, the reason why this is so different from other games is because in other games, you have your new player over here, or you have two equal players that started at the same time. Let's say Arcage, right? Let's say you have two equally sweaty players. Both of these guys are sweaty players. One who doesn't swipe is just going to be forever behind the other one that does. And the sweaty players are going to feel the need to swipe because it gives you permanent and ongoing advantages that can never be taken from you. Albion Online is a full loot game. So whenever you die, if you purchase that stuff with real money, that stuff is dropping on the floor. So it's just not a permanent boost to your power level, right? In games like Arcage, players who normally don't pay to win feel compelled to so they can keep up. If they're not doing that, they can never get to that level. I think that's the reason why Albion Online is so different from other more egregious pay to win systems, is that sure, you can exchange your money for in-game currency, but you don't actually get the same ongoing lasting power that other games give you when you swipe. Now, what's the other piece? There was another point I wanted to make. I hope that's explained well enough. I don't know. I had another point to make. Awakened weapons. Now, awakened weapons, premium, I'd say premium is an expected cost. It's the price of the game. Sure, you can play without premium, but premium is the intended gameplay, right? The way, like the amount of EXP that you're supposed to get, the amount of silver you're supposed to get, all that stuff, the bonuses you get from premium, this is the intended way to play the game. So if you don't have premium, you can choose to do that, but I wouldn't call this pay to win. It's just a free to play or premium route. I don't really factor that into. So many games, especially live service games, MMOs, they have this system to help fund things. So it really is just sort of price of admission. And you can buy premium for silver, right? This is the screen for premium. You can buy your premium with in-game silver, and a lot of games don't provide that. The other thing, the one exception I want to say, because there is a piece of Albion that has a little bit of pay to win, and I would say that that's awakened weapons to an extent. Now, awakened weapons are your ability to take a weapon. It's got to be a 0.4 weapon. So it's got to be like a enchanted weapon to 0.4. So I can't demonstrate it right now. It's over the forge, person over here. But with a lot of in-game money, you can awaken weapons to a pretty extreme amount. And a lot of times, I would say the big problem with this system, the reason why it dips into pay to win, is because there's very little way to really be profitable, or very few ways to be actually profitable in-game with awakened weapons. Because they're so expensive, they do add a lot of power. I have an awakened weapon, I can show you. They do add so much power that there's very little way to actually net positive on typical runs. You'll go out 10 times successfully, you still didn't pay for that weapon probably, depending on the weapon. There are ways to utilize this system without getting that expensive. But, like, let's say, for example, this weapon here. I'm finding it. There it is. An 8.4 tomb hammer. I don't know how much this is worth. I forget. 100 million? It's a lot of money. A lot of money. A ridiculous amount of money. And then I've poured, I want to say, a pretty big sizable chunk into this weapon as well. Now, this weapon, I don't think can ever really be profitable because it's just that expensive, right? I could come out surviving 20 times and I still didn't pay for this weapon, right? So it almost dips into the realm of not really usable by your typical player because it's too expensive to work with in game. And so I'd say awakened weapons, they're not ultra common, right? And they still can be dropped. So like if you do kill someone with an awakened weapon, it still does drop. But I feel like it does dip into a bit of pay to win mechanics that don't feel good because, yeah, it's enchants. You get extra stats. Like this thing gives me 250 extra HP when I'm holding it, right? We're seeing a lot more than that because it's a tank weapon and also has built-in HP. But this weapon has enchanted on it 250 extra health. Yeah. And swipers could use these weapons. Now, they will still drop them for the general population. So I think that's why there's not a huge uproar in the game and people with their pitchforks, because at the end of the day, you do still drop these on death, right? But it does dip into it a little bit, I feel, because it is kind of out of the reach of normal gameplay. It's just so hard to actually become profitable wearing one of these pieces. My set that I was wearing for this, I don't even know, 200 million or more. I had to take a lot of winning to pay it back, and it's tough to do that. And some people do. Like, some people do make it work, and we've gone out with this set. But this is the one part I feel like most players are like, awakened weapons are a little too far. But it doesn't affect that much of the game. And so I think it's been kind of, people haven't really complained too much about it, right? It's got low impact. But that's pretty much it, I feel like. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I just kind of wanted to give the general feeling of why people aren't upset about the monetization in Albion. Albion is obviously wildly successful. There's thousands and thousands of people online at any time. And most people, while it does have elements of pay to win, most people consider it not actually feeling pay to win when they play. And I don't know. I hope I encapsulated that well enough. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you around. In a more concise manner, and maybe we can stick this in the video in the middle, but in a more concise manner, the reason why paying to progress in Albion feels so vastly different than, say, paying to progress in a game like Arcade or BDO is that it could take you years to reach max in those games. Literal human years. And you might never get there. Most players will never get there in those games because you'll play for 4 months, 6 months, and you'll never get there. But people who swipe like crazy will get there in a couple months or a couple weeks or whatever. And so those guys are there immediately, and they're able to just walk all over everyone else who isn't. And most people just experience those games through the lens of, these guys have paid to win and they're stomping on me. We played for a couple months and then I stopped, right? But in Albion, the ceiling is so low on progression that your average player gets to that point where they're already semi-maxed and able to compete with anyone else in the game, right? And so I think that's the big difference, is Albion has such a lower progression ceiling, which is a good thing. There's a lot to do in the game beyond just getting your weapons to be at a good usable state. But because the ceiling is low, it doesn't turn into just a pay-to-win mess. Does that make sense?